A little bit about my guest. A tennis prodigy since she began playing at the age of 10. Zina Garrison turned professional in 1982, where she reached a career high of number 4 in the world. In 1990, Zina made headlines by becoming the first African-American woman to reach a Grand Slam final since Althea Gibson did it about 3 decades prior. Zina went on to achieve one of the highest accolades in professional tennis, competing in Wimbledon's Senior Championship. She's also a 3-time Grand Slam mixed doubles champion, an Olympic gold and bronze medalist, just to name a few of her career milestones. In 1992, Zina founded the Zina Garrison Academy, an instructional tennis program to give inner-city kids the opportunity to build self-esteem and learn about themselves through tennis. While she's been retired from tennis since 1996, she's still active in the tennis community. She was the leader of the United States women's tennis team at the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games. And she still remains one of the finest double players in the game's recent history. And most importantly, one of my lifelong friends. Zina, welcome to Here for Good.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dennis.
Well, I'm glad we could finally do this. So let's start a little bit of talking about your impressive tennis career first. You started playing just at the age of 10, and within 2 years, you entered your first tournament. Talk to me a little bit about your love for the sport, and particularly in those early years.
Yeah, I was really fortunate. I had a brother that actually played baseball and actually took me over to McGregor Park. And at McGregor Park, the tennis courts are directly behind the baseball field. And I was sitting there and I was watching my coach by the name of John Wilkerson actually play. And that's where I actually thought about maybe I could play this game. So he asked me if I wanted to try it. And I tried it, hit the first ball over the fence. And I was so excited. And then it came to me that, this was a game that needed to be, you play the games within the white lines. And so that's kind of like where I picked up the game from.
So it became more than just obviously a passing hobby for you as a kid. What was it like for you as one of the first Black female tennis stars?
Yeah, that was, I was really fortunate that I came behind. Althea Gibson was actually like the first major one. But then there was a whole group of other African-American tennis players like Leslie Allen, Renee Blunt, and I was considered to be the young one. And they actually kind of helped me when I came on the tour to basically understand the ropes of the game. And I always had a very strong support group of entertainers, athletes, celebrities that had came before me that helped me with the whole process of being like the first African-American to kind of hit to be on that tour.
I can imagine the mental toll that took on you. I really would like to talk to you a little bit about mental health and athletics. We saw Simone Biles withdraw from a number of her Olympic events in Tokyo, and just prior to that, Naomi Osaka withdrew from the French Open, and now most recently, she said she's planned to take a break from tennis following her third round loss in the U.S. Open. I'd love to hear from you, someone who has been in the Olympic spotlight, also at a young age like Naomi and Simone, has been in the position of being pegged the next or considered the greatest. How common are mental health struggles among professional athletes?
Well, first of all, I'm really proud of both Simone Biles and also Naomi Osaka for even bringing it out. Dennis, like you said, you've known me for a very long time. I dealt with eating disorders as well as, which is considered some form of mental health way back when in the, middle 90s. And a lot of athletes that I grew up with also had, we kind of would laugh on the tour because everybody had some form of therapy or something that they went through. Uh-huh. And it's been, in sports for a very long time, but it's very taboo to talk about. And even when I was growing up, you don't want to talk about it because you saw it as a form of weakness. And now with Simone and Naomi bringing it out, it's a form of really taking care of yourself, and it's just another part of you like making yourself better. So I'm very proud of those two women for finally being able to have a platform to speak about it and bring it about. But it's been in sports for years.
Naomi was also fined for skipping the post-match news conference after her first round
Hmm.
victory at the French Open. And both women have been a source of social media praise and criticism. I mean, now social media was not a thing when you were competing, but I'm sure you've had your fair share
Thank
of media.
goodness.
I'm sure you've had your fair share of media interviews. How much more pressure does that put on an athlete?
Well, I think that's, I really, I'm joking about it, but I don't know if I could have really handled it, growing up the way that I did. And then now with the whole social media part, because that is a part that you have to learn to just incorporate in your training each and every day, because you have to do it for endorsements. You have, that's their voice, and it's every little aspect. So it's a lot more difficult. And as a coach as well, training someone, it's even difficult because they don't have the capacity to really to just think about, tennis, or whatever you're doing. They're all over the place. So it's also very hard to coach the new age athlete
Athlete.
now as well.
Zina, you mentioned just some of the struggles. Last year in 2020, it was reported that at least 40% of the U.S. adults reported struggles with mental health as a result of the pandemic, whether it was anxiety or depression or something else. So many people can relate to that feeling of just not being okay. Why do you think it's so surprising, to your point, when public figures bring their struggles to light? Why do you think people are so surprised that you're any different than anybody else? What's the number one thing that you would want people to understand or take away from what Naomi and Simone have said and done?
Well, I think you bring up, I'm going to go back to the pandemic. So, and I remember like probably the third week into the pandemic, um, I started really going through it. And the only way that I knew to get out of it was to talk about it. And I remember putting it on Facebook, and a lot of people were like, "Oh my, Zina, are you okay? But maybe you shouldn't have talked about it." And I'm like, no, these are the tools that I've used, that I've learned to use, is to talk about it. But then I got way more people were saying, "Zina, thank you. I was going through something, but I didn't know how to talk about it, or say anything about it, or wanted to hold it in." So I'm saying all that to say, Dennis, is that, we also, as people, have to get away from therapy
Yeah.
is a bad thing, especially in the Black culture.
Yeah.
You know, it is really just a situation where you really are taking care of yourself mentally. One of my therapy sessions, and the guy said to me, "If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else," and that has always stuck with me. But the pandemic, I think for a lot of people, brought up a lot of stuff, and people didn't have the tools, or don't have the tools. I mean, I even lost one of my very good friends, took his life, and we didn't know, had no idea he was going through this. But so saying all that to say is that I would just encourage people to really take a hard look at yourself and understand that it's okay to feel something, and it's okay to get help.
Zina, and I applaud you because you've always been very courageous. You've been very open about some of your own health challenges, and just, talking about the strategies that you have for yourself and the tools that allow you to take care of yourself is great. So I really applaud you for being courageous enough to be public about it. I want to switch gears just a little bit. In the 90s, you started the Zina Garrison Academy for the purposes I mentioned earlier, to lift up less fortunate children such that they could believe in themselves, and not only to provide tennis instruction, but to provide college prep classes, wellness, and nutrition education. How How did your own experiences influence the programs that you offer at the academy?
Well, my own experiences, it's me. I mean, and like I said, you've known me for a very long time. Everything that I try to incorporate into ZGA is the same thing that I know that works, and it works because of me. I mean, you take a little 10-year-old kid from, the hood in Sunnyside, Texas, and I had the opportunity to meet the Queen of England, and I've met presidents and all of that. And it's all because someone like a John Wilson gave me the opportunity to live a dream, to play tennis, and I had no idea where tennis can take it. So I try to put that same type of situation into ZGA. And a lot of times people say, "Oh, when you're gonna have the next, Serena or Naomi or Venus or whatever," and I'm like, I want to have the next kid to be able to do whatever they want to be and whenever they want to be, and to dream. So we try to give them a lot of different programs in ZGA just to be able to dream, to do whatever you might want to do
You
in
know,
life.
and you answered my next question, which was, did starting your career at such a young age inspire you to be, as we like to say, here for good for the rest of our nation's youth? And I think you just pointed that out quite well. I would imagine, given the mission and the purpose of the academy, because it was a live, face-to-face interaction with the kids, did you have to step back, or was there a setback with the pandemic? And how are things now that the pandemic is sort of eased up a bit?
Well, I'm laughing because you would not believe how many parents were calling us trying to get their kids. I'm like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You're not supposed to be coming
Begging you
out.
to get them out
But
the house, huh?
exactly. But I think what happened was there's two things. Like the kids were missing the opportunity to see their friends and to be outdoors and to play tennis. But also, they were doing so many things because we even tried to, stay in touch with them virtually. Well, then they were doing school virtually. So it wasn't the same. But, we just adapted. And this summer, we had a little more than normal kids that we had come out because kids were so excited to come back out. So I think it did a twofold. And the good thing about it, tennis and golf were two of the sports that people said that exploded
Yeah,
during the
because they could do
pandemic.
it safely and they could do it in social
Exactly.
distance and still have a good time doing it. Well, that's good. So I know we talked a little bit about Naomi and Simone. I know early on in the career of the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena. Tell me a little bit about your work and interaction and your friendship relationship with the two of them.
Well, Venus and Serena, I both met them. I met both of them they were about 7 and 8 year olds. And I had the opportunity to meet them out I was doing an exhibition in LA for way back when is Say No to Drugs, Nancy Reagan, and they were actually, I had a chance to see them play. We've actually stayed in touch. And then the Women's Tennis Association has always had a mentorship where they partner up people with the same personality and all of that. And they try to, when you become a rookie and you try to stay in touch with that person. Well, Serena was mine. And so I've actually been able to kind of like, she's always, and I tell people all the time, she is truly a true champion because she'll text you. It might not be when you wanted to text you, but she'll text and she'll ask you questions. And I recently, a couple of months ago, had the opportunity to hang out with her for about 6 weeks and training and everything. And it's just been amazing to see what a great mom she is. But even more so, what I was surprised with is her life, she organizes it each and every day to fit her schedule, but she also puts time in there for her husband and also for her child. And that was like really cool to see.
Do you think the world of professional tennis has changed and opened up more for people of color and those that historically have not been a part of the game?
Well, I definitely think it's opened up, but I still don't think there's been as many as I think that should have come through, and especially on the men's side. It's been a struggle, but we've had a struggle on the men's side just having U.S. players, period. Um, this year's U.S. Open at least showed that, there's a guy, Francis TFO, he of color, and another guy of color from Canada had the opportunity to play. And I remember seeing an article, and it's like, what an impact that they have made, since Arthur Ashe. And I thought that was really cool. So I still think Venus and Serena is you have like a Sloan or someone like that, and it's been a little, but I still think to me, it should be even more.
Now, have you had anyone from your tennis program rise up to the professional ranks or become a very competitive player?
No, I'm saying it like that because, my program has really been to design, like I said earlier, tennis is just a hook for a lot of different things. Because when you start going into the serious academy part of it and the tennis training and dynamics and, it's a whole nother thing. But I have had some kids that have gone on to get college scholarships, and that, to me, that's more valuable than getting a professional. If we got one eventually, yes, but it's more important for me to have a lot more kids go on and to be, amazing doctors or entrepreneurs or, a lot of different things.
Speaking of kids, so what would your 18-year-old self think about you today?
What the heck are you doing? No, I've always been this inquisitive, kind of older, quick kid. Never really liked the party scene, never really liked too much gossip, but I've always loved giving back to others. And I think that from the 18-year-old to 50 something now.
50 something?
I can say that. Yeah, 50 something. Okay. We can, I can say that I think that I'm doing a good job, but I still have a lot more to do. But and that's another thing, Dennis. In the pandemic, it made me stop and think about all the things that I've done and all the great things that I've done instead of focusing on what I haven't done. And that put me in a much better place.
And that is a great way of looking at it. And one other question. So, Zina, you were truly considered a prodigy at a very early age. Do you feel like, and I'm asking this of you because I wonder about others, do you feel like you missed a part of your life, a developmental part, not when most kids were out just sort of playing and playing, you were really focused and competing and training, and you turned pro very early. Do you feel like you missed out on anything? And how does that apply to what you're seeing also in some of the younger kids today?
That's a very good question, Dennis, because, and I would say, and you and I have talked about this a lot. I've always felt that I was like probably 5-6 years behind socially. Mm-hmm. But I was probably 5 or 6 years international travel ahead of my peers, but I always felt, and I still feel it even with the tennis world today, I think it's even worse. Because a lot of them don't have like regular friends that I might have gotten in high school. They just have tennis friends. They don't really have a lot of outside friends. So I would say the biggest part of missing out probably was socially.
Socially.
Yeah.
So what's next for Zina Garrison?
What's next for Zina? Let's see. I got a couple of things into work. I can't talk about them right now, but if one of them, comes.
Nobody's listening. It's just you and I talking. We're just two old friends talking about what's on the horizon.
So we'll see in the next couple of weeks or so if I might could end up on a television, some kind of television show. So we'll
Well,
see.
well, Zina, this is always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you so much for taking time to share some of your life story and some of your thoughts about the world of tennis and how you are impacting the lives of some of the youth in our nation. So thank you for being a part of Here for Good.
But thanks for having me.
All right, talk to you soon.